This is Victoria, and I am a magic and mindset mentor. I help women with mental health issues cope and heal through mental illness and trauma using crystals, tarot, and other cool magic stuff.
And our lights just went out because you said magic. That literally just happened. Can you even see me? What a joke.
Yeah, you're a shadow, but I see, oh.
I turned my brightness all the way up.
There you go. Okay.
Keep going. The show must go on.
For sure. Okay. And so I've been recording different conversations with other entrepreneurs that have mental health stuff going on too. And so I have got Nannette Minley on here. She is an awesome human being, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi. So I took my glasses off so the glare wasn't too intense because I'm in a dark room now. But yeah, like you said, I'm an awesome human being. Thank you. I'm a marketing and business coach for primarily women, but I'm not, I guess, opposed to working with men. Primarily women who feel really called to make a big impact with what they're doing, who are very message driven, who want to talk about things at a deeper level and really deeply help the people that they're helping. And so I help my clients figure out a marketing strategy, figuring out what their hangups are, figuring out what has held them back in the past so we can move past it and then make bank and make it too. So that is me.
Awesome. So would you say that you're dealing with a lot of people with mental health stuff?
Like attracts like. So yes, I would definitely say that all of my clients either have experienced mental illness or are processing trauma in some capacity, which I think is all very closely related. I mean, if you look at trauma like PTSD, and stuff like that, it all works together.
Yeah.
In my experience anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have your own mental health stuff too, right?
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of diagnoses in my life, and one of those is PTSD, but there were others too. Just general anxiety disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, whatever. God. I also bipolar 2, depression, clinical depression, and there were other forms of anxiety. I can't even remember them all, but I've gotten all of them. The first diagnosis I had was ADHD though, and that was at 6 years old.
6? Okay, that's young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that contributes to the following things that happened there, because my parents were pretty quick to medicate.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. So when did a lot of it really start presenting in your life and kind of make it difficult to function?
It started at 6. Basically, if I can get raw, trigger warning, crazy abuse right now. So it started basically, my mom peaced out when I was 5, just like a rat. And then my dad basically got a new girlfriend at the time, who ended up being his wife, who was very abusive. And she came into my life when I was 5. So the reason I actually got the ADHD diagnoses was because I was acting out at school because I was going through being abused at home. And I got very violent for obvious reasons pretty early on. But it's basically been a healing journey my whole life. I've had a lot of self-awareness, but the more I get into it, the more I realize I totally ignored, because I feel I've dealt with this for, I'm 27, for over 20 years. So I must be fine now, but alas, that's not how any of this works.
Right. Yeah. I've found that self-care is never, self-care and healing is never, ever, ever a okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Check.
Yeah.
And I'm an achiever. So I'm I need to check something off here. This needs to be settled now, but
Yeah.
that doesn't happen, and I'm starting to be okay with that very
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, for sure. You shared a meme with me yesterday
Yeah.
that I love, and like I kind of like snort at it every single time. And I think you said you like don't know whether to laugh or cry, but it's
Yeah.
that meme about like just when you think you've like fully processed some like incredibly life-changing trauma, like, and you're at peace with it, the universe is like, all right, cool, you're done with that. Here you go. Here's some more.
Yeah. Um, it that's basically been my whole life,
Yeah.
like, to be honest, and that's why I had such a visceral reaction when I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this meme gets me, because I feel like I have these crazy, deep, amazing, like you said, life-changing insights, and then the next day there's another one, like DJ Khaled. Like, it's just a mess. So um I'm learning to embrace it, and I'm learning to just appreciate the growth. For a while I really dealt with, and I'm pretty recently still,
Mhm.
I really dealt with this feeling of like, when is this gonna be done? Like, I feel like I've been rehashing, and I don't want to sit in it. I'm very achievement oriented, like I said, so I'm ready to move past it, ready to move forward. I've been ready to move forward immediately, basically, after all these things have happened to me. But they have proven to be like very, very multidimensional lessons I needed to learn.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't get the multidimensional part until very recently.
Yeah. So, okay, you're a mom too, right?
I am. I have two
So
kids.
you're a mom, you're a business owner,
Yeah.
and you have mental health stuff going on.
Yeah.
So like how does all of that interact together in your life? Like how are you balancing those three things in your daily life?
So definitely I'm gonna like do two at a time so you can kind of
Yeah.
see how they intersect. So with my children, the part of me that gets flared up the most often is my issues with sensory. So I can't handle a lot of loud noises. I can't handle a lot of touching. I just like, I'm very like, everybody gets overstimulated, right? But when I get overstimulated, I get like way overwhelmed. I mean, just, I think, beyond what is typical. So that's how that intersects. I definitely need a lot of breaks from them. I can't be with them like 24/7.
Right.
And this actually like manifested completely when after I had my son and I was home with him 24/7. And lo and behold, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, which were not really a shocker. I didn't know postpartum anxiety existed. I only knew about PPD. So um, when I started dealing with my stuff there, it was really overwhelming. I was seeing horrific images in my head, and you know how anxiety works. Just basically, what is the worst possible thing that can happen right now while someone is touching my baby, or my baby's just sitting there doing nothing. um, and so I have a lot of anxiety in that relationship with them, not really in any, like, I like them, they're cool.
Mhm.
I'll keep them, I guess. But when it comes to when I'm overwhelmed by them, like, I just need like a clean break. Like, I just need to go out somewhere, or we need to, like, my husband needs to take them somewhere. You know what I mean? I just needed a break.
Mhm.
So that's actually what fueled my business, because I started really getting serious with my business endeavors when my son when my son was like maybe 2 months old. And that's actually when I started my whole spiritual healing journey as well. So they're very coincided, like my business endeavors. I was doing things before, like when I was 18, I started a little bakery thing. But the business and the, like, the personal development and all of that is like very, very intertwined for me. So then when it comes to dealing with my business and mental illness, anxiety is definitely the biggest one. Not necessarily for, can I do this, or is this possible, but like more like, what bizarre circumstance could happen that would block this from coming to pass, or waiting for an invoice to be paid. It's just basically like a giant panic attack for the whole time.
Right.
You know, and I'll be real, like I do a lot of work to chill out, you know, vibration, you know, stuff. I'm like, I'm not trying to bring this like crazy frequency, you know, like I'm not trying to do any of that. So I'm really intentional with just my own vibration and my own mood. But it is definitely like a challenge, and it's very fresh because I just waited for an invoice for like 36 hours. And basically it was like a day and a half long panic attack. Even though the person was completely delighted to pay the invoice, was just like busy. So, you know, so yeah, that's how those two interact together. And honestly, I have to be really, really intentional about mindset work. I have to be really intentional about just clearing my own energies, and like, especially because I deal with people in such a like intimate way with my coaching clients, I have to really like be strong about my boundaries, like clear, like literally I keep Sage like on my desk right behind my computer. So after I'm done, I'm like, all right, get that juju off. And then I can go into my next coaching call like cleaned. So yeah, those are some of the things, like those are how those work together.
Cool. You mentioned a really, really cool thing that that I've done before, and you said you keep Sage like behind your computer. So you're like literally like smudging after all your calls.
Basically, yeah.
That's awesome.
I wasn't doing it at the beginning, and I noticed what happened when I didn't do it. I was just like carrying people's money stories, carrying people's like scarcity mindset, like because my clients are vulnerable with me, which I love and appreciate. But then I have to like remember what I know to be true and what I've grown to like cultivate in myself, and these beliefs that money is infinite, that there's more than enough for everybody, that it can come to you in a second, all these things. I have to do the conscious work of reminding myself of this, because when you're in the process of like helping someone heal that part of themselves, all that comes out, and it's fine. It's part of the process, but I just need to be careful. And so now I am. I wasn't for a long time though.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that a lot of like entrepreneurs have in common. Like, so I've found that a lot of people with mental illness that are also like running businesses, like it's a constant like, I have to stay on track of like my self-care, because if I'm not doing the work, like, because my whole thing that goes back to it is like, if I'm not doing the work on me, I'm the business. So if I'm not doing the work on me, then my business is going to fail.
Yep. Or do you take that energy with you into your business activities, and then your business will fail. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that but that's really important, is making sure that you're consistently taking out that time for self-care.
Yeah.
So what are some other coping skills that like you use on a daily basis to kind of like get through like the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur with mental health stuff?
So some of my tools, definitely guided meditations, hypnosis, like tracks and stuff on YouTube. I also really love EFT and highly recommend it to basically everybody who will listen. EFT is emotional freedom technique, and I learned about it from Margaret Lynch, but I actually watch Brad Yates more. I just resonate a lot with him. So with that, he has basically videos, and he walks you through basically all sorts of ideas and thoughts that you're trying to get rid of, and has you tap on multiple points throughout your body to help release. And then you go through again and you basically say affirmations, and he doesn't call them this, but that's basically what you're doing. So that's a huge, super, super important coping mechanism. I also am a crystal junkie. Like I have 100+ crystals. I actually always have one. Yeah, always have one within hands at all times. Sometimes if I'm feeling like the energy of a person I'm talking to on the, like on a call like this is really intense, I will straight up be like rubbing, like tourmaline is a really good one for that. So I'll just be like rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, and I'm like, I'm grounded. Yeah, so crystals, EFT, meditation, hypnosis. I'm actually in the process of getting like a custom made hypnosis track. So that'll be really cool. Yeah. Through
Fun.
my really awesome friend. I'll connect you later. But those are my main things. I also take a lot of time to like have fun. So I love going on drives, like love going on drives. So I definitely like will do that whenever I'm feeling really stressed. I'm like, okay, let's go on a drive, kids. I'll plug up the iPad or something in the car so they can watch it, and we'll just drive. I mean, honestly, my husband and I do this probably once a week, and we'll drive maybe like 30-40 miles just around.
Right.
And that helps me calm down, and I'm normally driving, and so I'm able to communicate my thoughts a lot better, which is really nice. So those are some of the things I do.
Yeah, those are all really awesome. I'm also like definitely a crystal junkie. I love.
Yeah.
You posted somewhere, I don't remember where now, but it was a video of the EFT.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. I did EFT for the first time.
Oh, good.
So that was really interesting.
It's weird the first time. You can just say that. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm doing this. I get it. It was super weird for me. But
Yeah.
like 2 days later, like these things set in and I was like, oh my gosh, I was addicted ever since.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a lot of the thing with energy work too, is like it's not really instantaneous, like at all. Like I had an energy session like almost 24 hours ago, and I'm still like feeling stuff like settle out.
Yeah, or come up.
Yeah.
Fun. I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't really ready for that.
Oh, I guess we're dealing with this now. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So would you say that your business like launched your spiritual path?
You know, they were so like close together, but the business that I'm doing now wasn't the business I launched back then. I actually was an MLM first. So that is similar. I was still coaching my like downline, you know, but it wasn't a full coaching practice. So yes and no, it really got me started on like feeling confident enough to give other people advice, I guess. Because I was doing so much learning, so much like consuming and digesting really. But even from, I started my like coaching business in like 2004. I'm still like not, it was like at the end of 2013 or beginning 2014. And definitely like without spirituality, I still would not be doing this. I don't know that I would have been able to overcome a lot of the blockages that I've overcome and like get myself into the right headspace that I have to get into and all of that stuff. I definitely accredit to spirituality and like crystals and things. I don't know how much that encompasses, but you know what I mean? Like personal development, inner child work, like those kinds of things, which I group together as spirituality, but not everybody might.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. And I think that everyone kind of has like their own like different terminology for it.
Yeah.
For sure. So I had some things written down. You mentioned earlier about the postpartum depression and the postpartum anxiety.
Yes.
So when I had my son, I not only had like all of my trauma come back up because like I'm pregnant and my womb and my like lady bits that were traumatized.
Yeah, no, I know.
Right. So like, but I knew all of that was going on, but I didn't know that postpartum depression was a thing. Like literally no one told me about it. I had no idea. Yeah. And so like when I had my son, I had severe postpartum depression and I actually had borderline postpartum psychosis. It was like one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. But the reason that I say that is because like I've been trying to like basically talk about it as much as possible, just because like as someone who's been in therapy like since I was 12, right, and like had mental health stuff, like to not know that that existed, like there's still a lot more work to do like getting it out there, right?
And it's so confusing because you're like, this is supposed to be the best thing ever. Like,
Right.
I love my kid, you know, and all of these, like, and then you start feeling guilt, which just compounds everything so much more. So I can't imagine. That's awful. Yeah, I knew about it because my mom told me she had it, like, when I was a kid.
Yeah. And that was something that like my mom kind of realized like when I was going through it, and it was kind of like a connection for both of us of like, oh, I guess on my mom's end, it was like, oh, okay, that's what I went through. And then on my end, it was like, oh, okay, that's what you went through. Yeah. So, but one of the things that I wanted to say is I didn't know about postpartum anxiety. Like I'd never even heard of it either until now. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, basically it's obviously happens during the postpartum, but it is a very, like, for me, it was a very violent situation where I was imagining a lot of like physical harm coming to me, physical harm coming to my son. And it was always like just bizarre imagination situations. So like someone would jump into our house from outside the car, like outside the road, and like just kill us all for no reason. It made no sense. Okay. And it was just stuff like that on a regular basis. Every time someone would pick up my son, I'm like, you're going to drop him and kill him. Like that was like what I was dealing with. So I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. Like I was just so scared that I would like turn around and he would just die. And there wasn't really, I think what triggered it is because when he was born, he had swallowed some amniotic fluid. And so they were like having to suction out his mouth because he was choking a bit. And that just like really, really screwed me up because it looked really, how they did it was pretty rough, I guess, looking for me. And yeah, it was hard. So that was basically how that worked. It's similar to postpartum depression in that it happens in the same period of time, but otherwise it's just like really intense anxiety. And, you know, to be honest, like there are points where I was probably hallucinating. But I didn't really end up getting treatment for that ever. Well, not medical treatment anyway.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely grew out of it though. And I'm really, really glad, but I definitely have anxiety still. It's a pretty big part of my life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned was like logic doesn't make anxiety go away. Like,
right.
I'm like, that's not logical. I would definitely like go and look for stats. Like, what are the stats that someone could actually break into my house and do this? And they were so low, but like I still had the anxiety. So it's not based, like the anxiety is not based on reality at all. It's completely in your head, but it's also completely valid. So yeah, that was one of the things I learned through all that, because I always try to logic myself out of my emotions and logic myself out of my slumps. Because I have my mental health stuff, but I'm also very type A. I very achievement oriented. And so, yeah, I like facts. And so I thought that would help me, but no.
Yeah.
Because they weren't factually based, they weren't able to be factually revoked, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. So like, what are some coping skills that you use like specifically for anxiety, like now?
I definitely do a lot of grounding techniques. So I like plant my feet firm on the ground, which I'm really short. I'm 5 foot. So that's not easy. Like I have to be intentional. If I'm sitting in this chair right now, just my toes are touching the floor. So I have to like get intentional and like touch the ground. I do a lot of like physical movement now when I'm feeling too in my head, which is kind of, you know, like I'm grounding through movement. So like taking walks and hiking was what I was doing in Washington. It's summer here, so it's still pretty hot to do that here.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing when I lived in Washington. And grounding with crystals for sure. Yeah, those are some of the things. I'm trying to get into journaling, even though I tell literally every one of my clients to journal because it's so helpful. I have carpal tunnel in my left hand, and so I can't journal that much. And so I don't do it as much, but I definitely find great results when I do journal. And when I absolutely can't journal, I have a friend who I can box, like through Voxer, and just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, which is basically like audio journaling.
Right.
I'm still able to make a lot of progress that way. I've also started to get like energy healing and stuff done for me. And that paired with journaling and paired with like introspection are really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Having energy work done on me, like yesterday was actually the first time that I had ever had it done on me, because I
also had my first time in the last 24 hours, so of course, right?
Yeah,
That's funny.
exactly. Yeah, so that would happen. But like, so I like talk about energy all the time, and like I can move other people's energy, and like I've done
Same.
healing on myself, and like I don't mind like being in other people's energy, but like opening myself to receive that is like one of those things where I've been extremely, extremely hesitant until like just now.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my, so my ADHD basically fuels my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, it's just going to keep happening. So whatever. My ADHD fuels my anxiety because I almost liken it to like my mind is a bunch of like filing cabinets that are all open, or they're all closed and someone asks me a question and then they all open. And I don't even know where to get the information. I don't know where to find what I'm feeling. I don't know any of that. So then I get anxious because I can't communicate. And like working through all of this at the same time, like allows me to see how related these things are. But for a long time, I just thought my anxiety was just because I was anxious, and my grandmother's anxious. My mom was anxious. Like it's really, my dad's anxious. It's a family trait for sure. But when it comes to actually dealing with the cause of the anxiety, I'm finding that my ADHD is actually the driving force for a lot of this. So I've been working on addressing that, mm-hmm. and getting really organized so that my anxiety isn't as frequently freaking out at me. So,
yeah, that totally makes sense. Like I know you've picked up Trello recently, so I can definitely see how doing that is helpful.
I was using Trello before, but it was not organized. So I was like doing like a project was like 5 boards, and I just would dump in there, and it wasn't actually helpful until I started like classifying my information a little bit better in my own head. So yeah, it's helped me a lot. Not like Trello and being organized has helped me a lot in that I know where to find things, so I don't have to deal with so much like searching and all of that before like knowing the answer. So that really helps a lot.
Gotcha. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and we touched about it a little bit before, about like the intersectionality between mental health and your business.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I want to ask you, because like I've experienced this myself, and I'm pretty sure other people have too, but in your work, do you ever have clients or like conversations that trigger you?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I'm so grateful for them. And I know that that's because of the mindset work that I've done. I know that not everybody's grateful for them. Well, when I get triggered by my clients, I'm very quick to go, what am I supposed to be learning? What is this for? Like, and I'm really quick about reframing it as an experience that helps me. Because that's the understanding I have of triggers, is that they bring things to the surface so that you can process through them and get some healing and then be better. And so when my clients trigger me, and I actually did a voice recorded like thing on Anchor about this. It was like a mini podcast, maybe like last month. And the first thing is, one, I'm thankful, like I just said. I love the opportunity to get better. But two, if it's like so flared up and inflamed that I can't deal at the moment, I will use my boundaries and be like, okay, I'll get back to this when I can. So I can process on my own and not like come back really intensely. But I've definitely had many, many experiences, even in the last 2 weeks, that have been triggering with clients and stuff. So yeah, I mean, aside from just being thankful for the opportunity to get better and like taking the time to process before responding, and like understanding that the trigger is a trigger and not like just me, I'm able to kind of build a separation and say, okay, why am I so riled up by this? Only reason I'm so riled up is because this is something that is still very tender to me. So let's look at it. And that takes a lot of courage. I'll be honest. Like, it takes a lot of courage to be willing to dig into yourself like that. But my commitment to healing, to becoming a whole and fully embodied human being is so, so great that I'm like willing to do basically whatever it takes to get here. Or there, whatever. I'm kind of almost there, I feel like, but who knows? So yeah, it happens all the time. And I think that every entrepreneur with mental illness should be like fully aware it's going to happen all the time. Sometimes multiple occurrences within one conversation.
Yeah.
But that self-awareness and that courage will carry you like at least through the session, so that you can then go and journal, then go and do your grounding work, do your energy work, whatever it is that you do to get the ground back under you. And then you can go into like learning from it and stuff, for sure. Yeah. It happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
I think every conversation I have with like any individual like always ends up bringing something, even if it's not like a hurt. It's just oh, this is something that I need to work on. I'm like, all right, thanks, I get it.
Yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming, but I'm really grateful for the ability to move quickly through these things too. So when stuff comes up on a more regular basis, to me, that signals that like I'm ready to work on this much at this much at this time. So I look at it that way. And so I'm able to be like, okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. And then I also think that like writing these things down so that you can easily reference your triggers and like see what kind of topics are going to be hot for you. You can just be more prepared, I guess, like emotionally, like have your obsidian or your tourmaline or whatever you use. Hematite's also, I think, kind of good.
I love hematite.
Yeah. So those, having some of those around will help you too. And if you know, like, for example, if I know my client wants to talk about something that is very triggery for me, I'm not going to not show up. And that's the courage. You know, that's the courage for sure. That is, I used to run away. Like, I'll be honest. And I think that's why it took my business as long as it did to like become steady, like it has this year. It's because if something was hard or like too overwhelming, I'm just like, okay, you don't have to pay me, go buy it. Like, please just leave, you know, because that's how I handled anxiety. I would just be like, all right, bye.
Right.
So having the courage to stay in the room, having the courage to work through the trigger and to process and to show up imperfectly and even announce like, hey, this is kind of a triggering conversation for me, but I want to have full disclosure and like let you know before I start coaching on this. And honestly, that integrity is really a key piece for me. And I have told people that I'm like, just so you know, I'm coming at this from this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Take these words, but also maybe don't, whatever. But just understand that these are the experiences that I have behind me to make me think this way.
Right.
And you'll see that I'll say that with like boundaries, contracts. Whenever I'm talking about that stuff, I'm like, be so freaking clear. Oh my gosh, like, do not go through what I went through, etc. And I think clients can appreciate that when I say that, like, hey, this is why I'm telling you this. I just went through this ish myself, and I'd rather you didn't suffer through that. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I have one last question before we kind of wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
For any entrepreneur dealing with mental health kind of stuff, if you could only give one piece of advice, what would that be to them?
It would be to get a coach. It would 100% be to get a coach. I don't care who that coach is. I mean, there's obviously better ones or whatever for you, but absolutely have somebody who you can go to, especially if you're dealing with anxiety or depression and you know you're prone and you have a propensity to just run away or to not do the work that you need to do. Absolutely get a coach who will hold you accountable. That is the best. That's the best advice I would give. If you're not in a financial situation to get a coach, join a group program, join something. There's something available out there that the process of investing in will spur accountability for you because you don't want to waste your money. So, yeah, but definitely get a coach if you can.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That would definitely be a very good piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it helped me so much. One of my coaches, was it earlier? Yeah, like in the summer when I was like really ramping back up. I went to her and I was like, listen, I realize I'm not showing all the way up because I don't want people to fat shame me on social media. And that was something I wouldn't have ever like gone through, like processed if I didn't have a coach, especially one who I felt would hold space for me. And so she did, and she was fantastic. And she kind of helped me go through the emotions a little bit. And it was honestly the best thing ever because now I'm like, I'm visible. And it really like encouraged me to go back on live, doing more stories, doing more stuff like that, because I was able to kind of talk that out with somebody. So yeah, highly recommend. If you do get a coach, be freaking honest with them. Like tell them when you're struggling. Don't get a coach who you feel is going to judge you or like talk down to you if you mess up, because you will. And then who do you go to? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think soul-based, like anything, like any kind of coaching that you get, soul-based, like it should always, like there's always going to be, like even with legal coaching, like there's going to be some kind of blocks that come up somewhere and you're going to have to process it. And like, I just think that's the best way to go. So that
it's so funny you call it soul-based, and you're right, but the way I look at it is like having a coach who's going to see you for a holistic creature that you are and not make everything so single dimension, right? So if you're not doing the work, you need to have someone who's going to realize like, why are you not doing the work? What's happening here? Let's look under this. Instead of someone who's going to be like, do the work. If you don't do the work, you don't want it.
Right.
You know? And so like it is soul-based, yes, but it's also holistic because I'm actually interested in like healing the situation and not just like pushing you to do it despite all this. And sometimes it's a balance, right? Like sometimes you do have to move before you're ready. And like, I'm never going to say don't do that, but this is going to keep coming back up. Like it's going to continue to surface. And that's why I have to do my coaching the way I do it. Before I was a strategist. I was like, I just give you the strategy. You go do your thing. And lo and behold, people weren't doing their thing. They weren't sticking to the plan. They weren't following what I said. Some of them changed their entire business after I handed them their strategy, which took me hours to put together. And And I'm like, why is this happening? It's like, because they're not doing the work inside. They're not all of them, but you know what I mean? Like they're running away from the problem. They're shifting their focus because that feels easier than like digging into all of this. So that is when I had the big switch over the summer, of course. When my business started doing well, I started actually like taking the person as a whole and dealing with the whole, not just the marketing, because it's never just the marketing. It's never just anything. It's always multiple things working together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Nannette, I really, really appreciate you talking to me and being so open and vulnerable about this. I know that like it's not super comfortable, so I definitely appreciate it. Because ultimately, you know, what I'm trying to do is make sure that more people are aware of other people going through the same thing. So
Right.
I really, really, really hope that if anyone was able to relate, that like reach out and let us know. Like I think that we're both like highly approachable.
Yeah.
So like if you want to talk about anything, definitely let us know. You can see all of Nannette's work over at NannetteMinley.com. It's do you want to spell your name?
Yeah, it's NannetteMinley.
Cool. And then all of my stuff is over at victoriacrossman.com. It's CROSSMAN. So, all right, I will be signing off of here, and then we'll see everyone next time for the next interview.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Bye.